Hey guys, Paul Furniture here today, and today we're going to be building a countertop. So I built one countertop just to see how well my wife liked it before I decided to build the bigger countertop. So this is what we're working with. Built this just the other day. She really liked it, so we're going to move on to this countertop. Right now we just have a white piece of wood covering it, just so it's usable right now. Already have built some cabinets for underneath. So they're all complete, but I just need to do the countertops now. So today we're just going to be working on this full countertop here. Sorry it's a bit messy. Got a lot of projects going on today. But yeah, so it's going to be just like this. We're going to use just plain 2x6s, and then we're going to put a thick coat of clear coat over top of it just to help protect it. So the first thing we're going to have to do for our countertops is we're actually going to have to just make some measurements. So I already took the measurements and just kind of sketched it out real quick. So this is kind of what we're working with. And then I made a better image on the back side of a full scale image. So one box is 4 inches. So it's should work out pretty well for us. If you look, I labeled all the boards. So I got A, board B, C, D, E, F, and then here's all the dimensions that I'm going to make and cut. So I'm going to make and cut all these boards first before we start putting it all together. Alright, so as you can see, we got all our wood laid out here. So I made some pre-measurements and did all my cutting measurements before I even went out to get the wood to make sure that we get enough wood and that we don't get a little excessive on the wood. So all this wood here, I got it at Lowe's. It cost me about $80. So to make that big countertop, it's only going to take about $80 worth of wood. And then you got to factor in some of the tools you might need, and also the stain that you're going to be using, and also the lacquer that you're going to be putting on top. Alright, so got all my tools set up that I'm going to be using today. Just went ahead and briefly just set them up, and then I'll go through them and kind of talk about them a little bit so you guys can understand what I've been using, what works best for me. So right here, which is a standard cobalt drop saw. It's one of the bigger ones, works great. Got this little stand off Amazon, which is kind of nice. It's great for moving it around, and because it's a pretty big and heavy piece. So if you got this thing, it's got nice wheels on it. You can use it to move around, and it makes it a lot easier. Here we got our planer. So we're using that just to get the wood nice and even, and make sure they're all the same size and same width. And then also we have our table saw right here. So both of these are made by DeWalt, both very good machines, haven't had any problems with them. So that's what we'll be using today. So first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to start cutting the pieces of wood. So let's get to it. Alright, so first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to cut the width of these boards. So we're going to work on FED and also ONMLK. We're going to cut all those pieces. We're going to get them to the right width. We're not too concerned about length right now. We're just going to focus on width. These 2x8s, what we need is 6.5 inches for a couple of boards. So what we'll do is we'll just take like an inch off one side, and then we'll take the remaining amount off that we need on the other side, just so that we square up these edges nice and neat, so that they line up perfectly when we actually decide to glue our table together. There's no gaps or anything. So we want 6.5 inches for those first few pieces. So right now we're just going to take it, we got 7 inches right now, so we're going to take about 1 inch off one side, and then we'll take the remaining 1/2 inch off the other side. Alright, so we cut our first side of the board, so now we need to go and cut the second side. So we're going to switch this down to what we need, which should be 6.5 inches. So as you can see, we're right at 6.5 inches there. And then we're also going to get a ruler and just measure it just to make sure it's right at 6.5. Since this table is going to be all glued together and you don't want any gaps, you're going to want to make sure every measurement is like perfect. So we're going to get a nice little ruler, Just make sure that's right at 6.5 inches. Right at 6.5 inches, perfect. So now we're going to start cutting the other side of the board, just so that we know both edges are perfectly square and perfectly straight. Alright, so now we got both of our sides cut, so edges are nice and flat. They look good, nice and straight. So now we're going to start cutting to length. So we're still working on the center boards. We don't want to start working on the outside boards just yet, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Alright, so we got all our pieces cut now. So I didn't cut them to a certain length just yet. All I did was cut the 45-degree angles in them, and I'll show you why in a little bit, why we did that. So right now I just got all the 45 cuts in all the center pieces, and now we are going to plane them. Run them through the planer, get them to be just a little bit smaller than 1.5 inches. We're going to have them all planed down to a perfect height, so they're all the same height, so that when we put them together we won't have any lips up or down, so that they'll be perfectly flat. Alright, so we planed down one side, so we're going to just kind of dial it down a little bit more, take a little bit off the other side to flatten out the other sides. Also, I want to show you guys something here real quick. So yeah, there's a lot of dust still on the ground. A lot of dust being accumulated everywhere, but it's way better than what it could have been. So I've been using this dust separator. It just hooks up to a normal shop vac. You have a little lid right here where you put both your hoses and then your hose to your actual equipment. And just from today's work alone, this is how much sawdust I've created. So it's a nice little tool. Doesn't exactly get everything. There's going to be dust that gets everywhere, but you know, it does help collect a lot of it, so your mess isn't as bad at the very end. Alright, so now we have both sides of our boards planed. So both sides of them should be nice and even, and all the boards should be the same height. So the reason we want a little bit extra than 1.5 inches, we got these two tools right here. This one's supposed to be 1.5 inches, but I wanted to make sure that we were just below 1.5 inches, just to make sure we take off both sides. So basically it's just going to leave a little 1/2 inch right there. And then we got this other piece that's going to cut out the inside, so that way both of our boards should basically go together like this, and you're going to have a 1/2 inch there. That's why we also left extra 1/2 inch on some of the boards, just because we need to take that into account when we put them together. We're going to lose that 1/2 inch. So now we're going to start routing it with this routing table right here. Small one, a little bit unstable at times, but gets the job done. Not the best, but it still works. Alright, so day 2, we finally got all the router stuff done for the tongue and groove. So what I went ahead and did was put one side of the table together, so you can see that's one side, line the edge up there, and then drew a line so that I can cut this perfectly straight and even down this side for so that we make sure there's no gaps or anything. Alright, so I use this little Swanson tool here. Gives us a nice little clean edge on that one side, so now we know that side is going to be perfectly flat and straight. We're going to take the table apart again and then route these sides. We're going to do the tongue for these sides. So as you can see, I measured wrong at first. I had to add an extra 1/2 inch for the tongue, or the groove, or whatever it is, whichever side it is. So it's going to come out like this. So we had to add that extra 1/2 inch for right here. Here's our countertop all put together. So now we're gonna drill some holes. You can see I already drilled 3 holes. I'm gonna drill 1 more hole, and then we're gonna cut out the template for the sink. We're gonna use this jigsaw to cut the outline of the sink. These batteries off of Amazon. I think I got a 2-pack for about 60 bucks. They're at 20 volt, 5 amp, and at Lowe's for just one of them it cost me about 70 or 80 bucks. So great deal. I'll put the link so you guys can check them out. They worked really well for me. Then I just got an extra charger so that I can charge both of them at the same time. So we just used some of this wood filler and scraper just to fill in some of the gaps. This you can put on pretty messy because we're going to sand it down anyways and make it nice and neat, and it'll all disappear then. Alright, so sanding complete. Now next step is going to be to get rid of all the sawdust and put some stain on it. Alright, so we got the stain done for the countertops, and now we're going to use our glaze coat and put this on the table. Alright, countertops all back in. We got the kitchen sink back in as well and all hooked up. Everything's working great. Nothing's leaking. Just got some gaps that I'm going to have to fill. But other than that, came out really well. So, like I said, still got some stuff that I need to fix and some small things to adjust on it. But other than that, turned out pretty well, and the wife's pretty happy, so that's a good thing. Well, I appreciate you guys watching, and if you have any questions or comments, just let me know.